Welcome to the Indigo Minute podcast. I am your host, Maxim Presence, aka Max G, and today I'm speaking with my homie, Kenrick McFarlane, who's a very talented painter, artist. You could check out his art at kenrickmcfarlaneart.com. So without further ado, we're going to dive deep into the collective unconscious. Test, okay. 1, 2, hello.
Hello. Can you hear me? We are
yes.
here. We are out here.
Everyone can hear you, Kenrick, now that you're projecting your silent voice.
Saint Germain.
No one's calling
what
you
What you mean?
Germain.
Come on, bro.
All right, fine. I'm calling you Saint Germain. But that means if I call you Saint Germain, you better be channeling the master through your words.
Okay.
So, Saint Germain,
hello,
welcome.
Como estás? Didn't know he could speak Spanish, did you?
Oh, no. Saint Germain can speak any language. He's the master.
Exactly.
He's the.
Told you were speaking to him.
You okay? There we go. This is a conversation with Saint Germain. So, Saint Germain, how are you? How's life? What are you thinking about? What have you been thinking about lately, Saint Germain? What are you involved in lately?
Well, I think...
Let me ponder this.
Well, it's really nice to see friends. It's really nice to see...
All your Ascended Master friends, you mean?
Yeah, shout outs to all of my Ascended Master friends and all of those who are enlightened.
All the cosmic beings.
All of the cosmic beings and all of the atoms and protons and neurons and all of those good things that make up our world. I guess I've been thinking of that today. I've been thinking of seeing good friends, being around good energy.
What do you think about when you think about the protons and the atoms?
I think about how I can't see them.
You cannot see them. Tell me more about that.
I can't see them physically. My eyes, I can't see them. I can't hear them.
But you're one with them.
But I am them,
You are them.
So it's kind of cool to think that there's all of these things that we can't see. And there are things that we can't pick up with our 5 senses, but we still feel them. We still have a relationship with them.
Very wise, Saint Germain. Very wise.
That's why I say, talking to Saint Germain.
Exactly.
So. You know what I'm saying? So I think this morning I made...
Wouldn't you say that sense then is a sense? Like the feeling, the sensation is like a sense.
Yeah, it's definitely a sense, but we don't really classify it as much. We don't talk about that sense as much.
How would I tap into that sense? How do you tap into that sense, Saint Germain? How can we get a deeper and deeper relationship with the atoms and protons of all life?
Well,
what should one focus on to develop that sense of relation?
To develop that sense,
with the unseen things, but very real things.
Well, I can tell you what I do.
Please tell me.
I try not to speak for everybody, but what I like to do is I like to just do what I like. Whether that means listening to music, or calling my mother, or taking a nice shower,
the great cosmic mother,
drinking some good tea with a good friend, and I think about all the atoms. And I think about all the good vibes that are out there. But everybody's different, I think that everybody is going to have something that makes them happy or excited or stimulated. I think that's the first step. It's really simple.
I like simple.
It's really simple. It's not like anything.
I like easy and simple and effortless.
It's really easy.
You've taught me quite a deal about that, Saint Germain.
Well, the exchange is a beautiful thing.
No wonder they call you the great wonder man of the ages.
That's right. Please.
So
continue filling me up. keep juicing me up, man. I love it.
Yes. And, I feel like as we juice each other up, we become juiced up ourselves.
The world is very thirsty. It needs a lot of juice.
And sauce.
And sauce. And quinoa.
Oh, I love quinoa.
And curry seasoning and all that good stuff.
I ate a lot of quinoa in one of my past lives as an Aztec warrior. Straight quinoa grain diet, you know what I mean?
That's
healthy.
Pretty profound.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was eating in my previous life. Can you guess?
I'd guess you'd ate some quinoa too.
Wrong.
What?
I don't know. But I know it wasn't quinoa. It was probably something...
Something juicy.
Something...
Fruit.
Something bitter. And crunchy, maybe. Something slimy. Something with a lot of texture.
Healthy?
Well, I think that's all I had in the past life was healthy things. See, now in this existence, I have to make a choice. But back then, I didn't have to make a choice.
I love the idea of choicelessness. It makes me think that when we have a choice, we perceive ourselves as separate, as if we're an individual that's separate from the one. And we make choices that are somehow other than the choice of the one. But when we come to realize that we are the one, then the choice is simple. It's a divine choice. That's the only choice, therefore eliminating all other choices, and therefore equaling choicelessness.
Yeah.
In a sea of infinite choices, there's only one choice. Therefore, there is no choice. While still being a choice.
I would say...
I guess what I'm saying here is alignment. When you get into the alignment of your true authentic vibration and who you truly are, then you're just going to be making the choice that's the right choice, that's the most authentic choice to you. And when you continue to just only make the authentic choice, because there's always the most authentic choice out of every choice that's possibly available to us, there's always just the most authentic choice. Out of all the choices, there's the most authentic, the most enjoyable, the most exciting, the most thrilling, the most perfect choice in that moment for us that has no fear, that has no inhibition, that has no resistance. And when we can tap into that alignment, because each person is unique of their own sort, as you said, that there's that uniqueness provides a unique choice that's most authentic to each person. And when a person stays in their alignment, then they're only making the most authentic choice for themselves every moment. And that choice reflects their excitement, their passion, and their joy and their playfulness. And in a sense, that makes one feel as if there is really no choice, because why would you make any other choice than the most authentic choice you can make? So while there is still choices, if you are in alignment, you really just make the one choice that's the most authentic choice, and all the others fall to the wayside, so to speak. So that's what I meant by choicelessness and the power of being in alignment with your truth and who you are.
Wow. I think you expressed that so beautifully.
Thank you.
And I hope that more people will get that message because, unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people don't make those kinds of choices, And I hope that they'll learn something from this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I think the challenge people have with making the authentic choice is because there's confusion in their belief system.
I feel like a lot of it, for me, is fear. Not for me, but for me and what I see. It's like fear, And I can think of so many people as I say this. I won't really say, I think confusion exists too, but I think it's more like fear. I think fear is I think of fear as like a child, like a small child who is misguided. Maybe like they're in some kind of, they're like downtown at night and they don't know where to go to get home. That's like fear, I don't think of fear as like this like evil being or whatever. I just think of fear as like this like misguided child, Whereas love is like the mother of that child. And
Well, see, this is what I mean by confusion, because when one is confused about who they are, then there's fear and doubt. And doubt and fear are the two doorways man and woman must pass through in order to ascend into their authentic, full potential and expression in every moment. And the reason fear and doubt are there is because we are confused about our identity and who we really are. Because if the confusion was not there, and the confusion stems from the idea that we're separate from our infinite love, wisdom, and power. Because when we truly know who we are at the core level, at the soul level, at the God level, there is no confusion of our power. And when we really know who we are, and we know how powerful we are, and we know how much access we have to any information through our self, through the love for ourself and the love that we are, then fear is not possible. Fear is only a product of believing yourself to be a separate, limited individual that's disconnected from the world that they're looking at, from their power, their wisdom, their love, and from their truth. But when the clarity comes in and the discovery is made, it's like a eureka moment of, wow, I am the creator of this world, and all of the forms within me are made of me. I am so powerful, and who I thought I was, this fragment, this piece, this part, is actually just a part of me, not the whole me. So when we wake up to our true identity, clarity arises, and we, what I like to say, we put on our crystal eyes, we look through the crystal eyes, and we see clearly, and that clarity is then able to see the abundance that we're constantly pouring forth for ourselves and all of life. We become the waterfall of jewels, and there is no fear, because fear is just an illusion and a veil to our true self. So confusion in my opinion, is really the source that creates the idea of fear and doubt. Because if you don't know who you are, then you're going to doubt. If you don't know who you are, then you're going to be afraid. If you don't know who you are, then, you're going to be feeling like you're disconnected from people in life. And that is going to create pain and discomfort. But with clarity, there's a more ease and more power and command. So we must discover who we are. That they say in literally every religion and every text, ancient text, it says, know yourself is the greatest of all wisdom. It's like the hack of all hacks. Once you know who you are, all the other things that are like empowering tools and techniques of like building yourself up, those are just secondary things to the truth of who you are. Even Jesus said, seek the kingdom first, and everything else will be added unto you, because you are the kingdom. And he says, heaven is here, but men do not see it. Mm-hmm. It's because there's a confusion. And so I think the clarity is the key thing. And clarity really comes from investigating ourselves. What have you been investigating about yourself lately? What are some things that you've been looking to clarify? Or like, you were talking to me a little bit about art and the art making process and some limitations that you've noticed you've been sort of overcoming. Or tell me about that.
Well, yeah, to go back, I think that last quarter was kind of crazy. Because this is Kenrick speaking now, by the way.
Yeah,
Saint Germain is taking a break.
Saint Germain is in and out.
He comes in and out of this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Now this is
sometimes
Kenrick.
He speaks through me. Sometimes he speaks through you.
Yeah, that's how he gets down.
He's not limited to this and that.
Yeah. Now this is Kenrick McFarlane speaking. Maybe I should give an introduction. My name is Kenrick. I'm an artist living in LA, studying at UCLA.
Masters.
My master's in fine art. I am
exquisite painter.
I do my best, and yeah. But last quarter was a huge. I don't know. I think I just grew a lot last quarter, and before starting school, I was in Johannesburg. I had a chance to fulfill
your divine destiny.
You could say that, but something I've always wanted to do, which was to travel and leave Chicago and see the world. So I was in Johannesburg for maybe 6 months, and then I was in Europe for a month. I went to Venice, I went to Oslo, I saw Prague, Berlin, Paris, Barcelona, London. Came back to Johannesburg, did an exhibition in Cape Town, did an exhibition in Johannesburg. And when I came back, actually after the trip, I think I flew to Chicago. I was in Chicago for a day and then went to LA to start school. So I didn't really have a chance to see many people in Chicago. And it was just really fast. Everything was moving very fast. And when I was in LA, I think I was excited. I was really excited to kind of start.
You are excited.
Huh?
Now you're excited too.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely excited now.
Yeah.
But coming in, I was excited, but I was also, I think, very confused. I had met a girl maybe a few weeks before I left Johannesburg, and I think that was a confusing experience. I was also insecure about the work I produced, and so that was also a very confusing experience. And I was trying to think about how I wanted to use this opportunity in graduate, for this MFA thing.
Which is quite an opportunity because, there's only 4 people that are accepted into the program in painting. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
That's gangsta.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing opportunity. And I saw the campus. It was my first time ever being in LA, ever seeing the school. And I kind of didn't realize how intense.
And you hit up your boy, of course.
Yeah, of course. I got in touch with people in LA. Max, of course. This is like, the God. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know what other word to use, but.
Ascended Master will suffice.
Ascended Master. And so, yeah, I think the first couple weeks was kind of intense because I was settling in, but I was also very confused. I think I was trying to really think about how to move forward with my art practice, how to move forward with my work, because I guess I started to think systematically. I was like, okay, well, maybe I should really just create a system for my work so that I can feed this market, and really start to, just kind of develop a process, because the work I saw from artists during my travels, they had a kind of system that they would use,
to produce work that they could sell.
To produce their work. And,
because just to give people a background, like you produce, you're a selling artist. So like this is your profession. It's like you're making paintings. You have collectors that buy your paintings. You have, you sell at galleries. It's not like one of those things where you're making art just for fun. It's like part of your business, but it's also for fun. So it's sort of like,
well, it's a weird combination of a lot of things. I mean, I think that my painting practice is the thing that has brought me to higher levels of consciousness, but it's also the thing that has like made me wealthy. And so it's kind of like an interesting collision, but it's also, the art world is like a kind of a weird world because it exists like pretty much exclusively in the upper class. In terms of like people who are able to participate in the market and who understands the conversation. So it's a very interesting collision of these 3 things. And I guess for the past, since 2014, I've been trying to come to terms with all of these things, and I think every now and then I have moments where I question what it all means, and I question, where everything is going. So when I got to LA, once again, I said to myself, okay, this is another really huge opportunity. I have 3 years here. I have all these resources. What do I do?
Yeah.
What should I do?
So many options.
What should I do?
But what's the one option that's most authentic and aligned?
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I love that this is connecting to the theme of confusion and alignment and
We'll get to that. I think this conversation covers all that. So I was trying to figure out what would be the best way to move forward. I was hanging out with a girl, Nasim, who was a friend of mine. She kind of was nice enough to introduce. She's also a student at the school, and she kind of showed me around. And also, too, I was very fortunate because the artist in Johannesburg, there was an artist in Johannesburg who was showing with the gallery, the same gallery that I was working with. But I had met this artist years ago, like in 2013 in Chicago. His name is Todd Gray. And so when I came back from the Europe trip to Johannesburg, I saw him there, and we had a chance to catch up, and I said, well, listen, I'm going to be in LA for school.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for a place. Like, do you know of any spots? And he was like, oh, well, you know, my wife and I, we have a studio space. Connected to that studio space is a little studio apartment. We can rent that out to you if you're interested.
Yeah.
And we were able to get connected during my first week, and that's where I'm staying now. And I think it was just a very magical experience because I really didn't know where I was going to live.
Yeah.
I kind of just jumped into LA with like no plan. But it worked out really nice. And Todd is like...
What does Terrence McKenna say? He says the best artists, the greatest mystics are the ones that know the secret, which is hurl yourself into the abyss and then discover that it's a feather bed.
That's really what it is. There's so many jewels that are being dropped right now. I feel like I'm like so many bruises, so many beautiful bruises of diamonds on my head and on my shoulder. And
they're actually not bruising you. They're just integrating into your auric field and installing and synchronizing into.
It's the best kind of impact you could really ask for. But
truly, that's not even a joke. Like,
I'm not joking.
Yeah, like if it's by the thing is we are afraid of the unknown because we think that it's gonna. We don't trust that. We don't trust it. We think we're separate from it. We think that the unknown is somehow going to be dangerous and not support us and like not provide for us. But you know what the point of this quote from Terrence McKenna is that if you truly understand that this is the secret, which is the unknown is you, literally it's you, because everything is you. You're the one. Everything is within you. The unknown is within you. And anything you'll discover in the unknown is going to be more of yourself. So if you trust the unknown, meaning you're trusting yourself, then you're going to discover that there's a very, very soft and comfortable and welcoming experience that the unknown will provide for you.
You know what?
Especially when you're going in the direction of what's truly exciting for you.
Yeah, man. You may not even know this or remember this, but you gave me this message in 2013. We were driving on the highway. It was like late at night. And you said, Kenrick, man, let the unknown be your friend. I never heard that shit before. I was like, what? But it was such a beautiful thing to say, you know?
Nice.
And I think I look at it that way now. And I guess I've also been in situations where I had to jump and dive.
Yeah.
So I kind of get it. Like I feel like I know that if my heart is in it,
then it's gonna work out.
Not even that, it was gonna work out better than I expected to work out.
Yes.
And that is really profound, you know. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like it actually goes better than what you expected it to be.
Always better, right? Always better. And this is the thing is, you really gain that trust. You know, for anyone listening, you will, you know, take our word for it, but you really truly will gain that trust yourself by putting it to the test, right? Like if you really go in the direction of your excitement and continue to be positive about it, then you will see it working out better. And like, wouldn't you say for you, for example, that every time you did that and you trusted and it sort of like showed you that it works out better, and then next time you did it again in a different way, you remembered all the other times and it helped make it easier and easier every time?
Well, that's been my life since 2010. That's how I've been living since 2010. Like before that time I was in high school, you know, so it's kind of like when you're in high school you're just taking in, you're just for that too, like it's just a bubble. And then you're just kind of like, well, actually, I would say in high school, the only thing I was concerned about was getting into art school. So I did whatever it took to get into art school because to me that was the only thing that mattered.
And that's where Kenrick and that's where we met.
We met in art school, yeah. We met at the School of the Art Institute in the fashion class. I was like making hot red jeans at the time. Little did they know I was a beast on the sewing machine, making
Hey.
dresses and all kinds of nasty things. So, yeah, I saw that this guy had a lot of swag, and I was like, hey, man, I like what you're wearing. And he was like, yeah, man, my name is Max. I got this thing called Gory Hip Hop. We interview motherfuckers like Wiz Khalifa. I'm like, what? I was like, that's dope, bro. Let me come through to your office. And the rest is history.
True.
The rest is history.
Although I don't think I had the office at that point, and
no, you had the website.
yeah, but
you had the website that was popping though.
Yeah, it was popping. That was like a 10-year chapter for me.
Yeah.
There was a lot. Just thinking about it even now briefly, like I put in so much. I did so many things, and now it feels like a whole like different life, pretty much, or something. Like now I'm like onto something different, and it's like almost like a different thing. But I do like to be reminded of like the things that were done and the amount of work that was put in, and just you guys
did amazing work.
Yeah, there's a lot of work.
Great work, and like it was just so cool to see like having like this network that's from Chicago interviewing these different artists, and the questions were really good. The whole thing was like very sophisticated and very clean cut. And yeah, it was just dope I think for me, it was just really exciting to be in Chicago, meeting people like Max and other artists who are just very proactive in making culture happen.
The thing I want to say about like celebrating things you've created or done, and I don't mean this in the sense of just creating work. Like, I think it's important enough to talk about here that, for example, like let's say you've created like a painting or a video or like some art project or done something for somebody of some service to humanity, to yourself, to uplift people, right? It's important to celebrate that. And what I more deeply want to say is to celebrate the steps in consciousness that were gained during those times. So like all the work that we make, art, whatever we're making, it's for the purpose of raising our frequency and raising our consciousness, which I'm now clearly seeing that everything we do is for getting to understand ourselves at a deeper level. So in the ascension, because this is mainly what I'm passionate about, is how do we ascend, how do we raise our frequency and become the greater us, the cosmic us, and it's done by appreciating every step of the way, meaning like every step you gain of a higher perspective is one step higher on the ladder of ascension, and every step needs to be celebrated and acknowledged and appreciated, because that's the ascension doesn't happen in one moment, even though everything is now, but it's a process of raising yourself up, and you got to celebrate every step of the ladder you do that. So
that's all I care about. I think that's the only thing that matters to me. I mean, that's like, I think because the thing is, it's like, it's such a mystery, like what we can really do or who we really are. I mean, more so how deep it can go.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I definitely agree. Like, it's good to give yourself credit and to really acknowledge those moments when you're choosing good, healthy paths, and you're like putting yourself in an environment that is nurturing to the things that you care about. Because you have to understand that takes courage. And
so much courage
is like, it's like one of the most beautiful things in this world is courage, or acts of courage. Especially when the courage is something that's happening within, like you're overcoming some kind of thing. And it could be small, it could be like to save yourself. That's something I celebrate. Anytime I save myself, I celebrate that.
Save yourself in what way? from something that's not authentic, from making a choice that's not authentic.
From, you could say, maybe a bad thought or a bad kind of outlook, or I mean, you put it as confusing. Maybe I would say the way you put it, when I remember who I am.
Yeah.
To me, I look at that as like saving myself, or like catching myself from falling, into
a lower identification.
Yeah, into like a lower, like, I think there's been plenty of times, and it could be a small thing, it could be a major. I don't even think it really matters about the macro micro. It's more so like the simple act of noticing yourself falling into a limited space and then picking yourself out of that.
Yes.
To go higher. Doesn't really matter what the situation is. But I think when that is happening, you should really give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah.
You should give yourself whatever it is that you like to do to treat yourself. You should do it.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I think
and
that
mindfulness.
That needs to happen more in the world. But I guess kind of going back to...
I just want to say that was beautiful. I 100% agree. That's like the number one tool for ascension, is that mindfulness, to continue to choose the more expansive outlook of yourself.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Yeah. So when I came to Los Angeles, I was thinking about all these ideas for paintings.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about developing a system, and I have a lot of ideas for paintings. So it's not a problem to think about ideas. But I think that during that experience, I just felt like I was hitting like the ceiling. Because I think there was also like this fear that I had where it's like, okay, well, what would I do after school, and where should I be, and all this kind of thing, and I have all these other interests. How should I do? What should I do about that? And I think that it was that, and then I think there was also a kind of boredom I was feeling with this. I mean, because for one, I was trying to create a system and try to be like artists who had a system, but at the same time that image seemed to be a little boring to me.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to be boring to me.
Yeah.
Because
you want to be more spontaneous.
Yeah, I didn't see any growth. And I think it took me until Thanksgiving to realize, and at the time I was actually really sick. I wasn't treating my body well during that time too. I was eating very bad. I had a bad diet.
Diet is so important, by the way, but that's a whole nother conversation.
I had a bad diet. I started smoking marijuana, which was like interesting experience, like I think marijuana opens up some parts of your brain, but also like kind of limits other parts of your brain. And
what I find with it is it dulls your sharpness.
Yeah.
It may open up some creative things.
Yeah.
But it in as far as being able to manage your attention, it sort of dulls that ability, which I think is important to have.
Yeah.
When you're on the Jedi path. Right.
I mean, I'm not. These are just my experiences.
There's no.
Nothing. I'm not trying to shame anything or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was
never that. It's definitely it's
just putting it out there, but it was really like my first time smoking recreationally on my own. So I guess it was kind of like experimenting because I felt more comfortable doing this in Los Angeles. I always felt paranoid about it in Chicago, just because I never wanted to deal with any bullshit. But so I had that experience, and that was interesting. And then around Thanksgiving, I realized, the best experiences I had with painting is when I was just kind of exploring what was exciting, an exciting idea. And I think that it was such an interesting process. That is such an interesting process because it begins with a lot of acceptance, you see. Like, you may be stimulated by something. And I think sometimes we may reject the things that we're stimulated by. you know?
Because
It's
it
like,
doesn't fit in the box
because
or the system that you're talking about?
Because you may say to yourself, well, maybe it's not trendy, or maybe it's not in the fashion, or perhaps it is against a kind of cultural code or system, or it's against what you've done previously. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why one may reject what is stimulating to them. And when I say stimulating, that's not always something that is beautiful. It's like stimulating is something that affects you. And sometimes that is scary. Sometimes that can be very frightening, you know? But at the same time, you feel something powerful. So, like, I would feel, and I think for me, in my experiences, I would come across something. It may be an image, it may be a conversation, it may be something I draw. And there is an exciting, a powerful, something sparks within me, you know? And the painting process allows me to explore whatever that exciting thing is. And through that exploration, I do feel a growth of intelligence. I feel like I'm working at a higher level. You know, I'm not using my consciousness. And I think that I can experience this with painting because I've been doing it for a while, you know, so I don't have to think too much about the technical things. I think when you're beginning a craft, you're just trying to understand how to make something good, like if you're a writer, if you're a painter, a musician, whatever. But once you've gotten to the next level where the craft and everything is second nature, then you could really begin to use that language to explore deeper parts of yourself, you know? And I think that is the thing that has always made painting exciting for me. And by trying to develop these systems, I was unconsciously taking that out of the equation. And by doing that, I began to realize that experience is the heart of my art practice.
Of like passion and joy and excitement about it.
I think,
Bruce Lee, I think of Bruce Lee, master, right? He says, because he talks about the idea of mastering the fighting style. And he says, like, once you master the actual technique, then you let go of the technique and you allow any technique to come through at any time. You become like formless.
Yeah.
And it's basically like the actual movements are second nature. So then you sort of remove your mind from the equation and you allow your higher self to act through you because you're sort of empty of preconceived notions of needing to be this structure, that structure, and it's so in your bones, in your blood, in your DNA, in your mind, and your emotions that you're masterful at the actions because you've practiced the structure and the discipline. But then once you have all that, you let it all go because it's a part of you now. It's like embodied. And then you allow the higher self to use that programming that you've installed through the practice and repetition, and it creates notes that your mind could not. It just comes through. You channel. It's like a formless flow of like you go from one style to another, and you mix that with that, and it's this beautiful free expression and flow that almost creates an entirely new way of being, like unreally definable, because it's anything could come through.
Indeed, man. I think this is such an amazing thing to remind yourself because, you know, within the art world, they talk a lot about painting. They say that painting is dead. And I think in other disciplines, they may talk about a similar art form or maybe thing. But when you have that kind of mentality or you understand that truth, you realize that, you know, these ways of communicating are simply tools. You know? Tool is just a tool. You know? The life doesn't come from the tool. Right. The life comes from the human, you know,
the soul spirit.
The soul. And that's such
the human is a tool, I would argue.
Yeah. I would
express
agree.
the
Yeah, I mean,
spirit.
if we're really gonna be super into it, yeah, like the body is a tool, the mind is a tool, and but that spirit is such an infinite space,
Yeah.
and we're not even, we're not. I don't even feel like we're really beginning to, like we're still at the beginning, basically. I don't know how else to put it, but we haven't seen too many things yet, so I had that experience, and I think that I felt something kind of trigger, like something in me kind of like drained out, maybe, or like opened up. I don't know how you want to express it, but something happened.
Breakthrough.
And I think from that experience, it started to like go into other areas of my life. And I started to become more aware, or started to think more about what else was a limiting factor within my life. And so I remember having this meeting with a professor. And that day I was feeling really good. I was just doing what I had to do. And she came to the studio and she started asking me a few questions like, well, did you do this, Kenrick? Did you do that? Did you check this email? And my response was like, no, I didn't do that. No, I didn't do this. No, I didn't. And,
With confidence.
Huh?
With confidence.
Well, I was just responding.
Yeah.
But after the meeting, I start to feel not so good. I start to feel doubtful because this was the professor who was very excited about my portfolio and who got me into the program. And so when she left, I think there was a fear. I was like, man, I hope she doesn't think I am not taking this seriously. I hope she doesn't think I'm just fucking around. And I think that worry stuck with me until I got home. By the time I got home, I was not feeling good at all.
Yeah.
And so I took a lay down. I laid on my bed, and I gave myself some time to think about this sensation.
Yeah.
Is that your phone?
Oh, no, we're all good.
Yeah. And so I took some time, and I just kind of meditated on this feeling. And after maybe an hour or so, I realized that, this suffering was coming from worrying about what she was thinking of me,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And, I think we hear this expression, don't worry about what other people think of you and this kind of thing. But I realized at that point, like, that's something that is really a part of me. I think maybe unconsciously, like, I really do seek validation.
Right.
And I came to this moment. I was like, if I have any intentions of getting higher or going higher, that's something I need to let that go.
Yes.
I was like, I can't move forward. I can't grow if I'm concerned about what other people think of me.
You can't really break barriers and create new vistas for humanity if you're concerned about what other people think.
I was like, there's absolutely no way I could move forward if this is a concern or if this is something that I'm worried about. You know what I mean? And that was a huge moment. I think even just from these experiences, I started to come to the conclusion that anything that interrupts your inner space from the outside world is like an indication that there's limitations within you, and that these limitations are actually opportunities to break free and go higher.
Yes. Take another step on the ladder of ascension.
And so I felt like it was kind of a trickle effect. I started to think about women. I had this experience where I was like saying to myself when I came to LA, I was like, well, man, now I'm in LA. It's kind of sucks that I couldn't be with the girl from Johannesburg. I was like, but I'm in LA, maybe I can like do my thing, And I think that I was projecting a lot when I would see women. I think I was so concentrated on the image,
what you're gonna get,
what I'm gonna
and
get,
the image, outer image.
you know. And I would never think of the person's spirit or their heart, you know. I would just think of like, you know, basically like, in my mind, I would say to myself, the girl needs to have these physical qualities or these physical, you know, features. And everything else I can put up with, you know. But if I can find a girl who has these physical things and she's nice enough, we can have our fun. And then I would move on to the next one when I'm finished with that, you know. And I think that I felt like this was also kind of illusion. Like I was thinking more deeper about this idea of illusion. And so I started to like think to myself, I was like, okay, once again, like if this is something I really want to, if I really want to ascend, you know, if I really want to keep moving forward or higher, I have to stop feeding my mind with illusions.
Yes.
You know, I think I have to really start learning how to see things for what they are.
Yeah.
You know, so I start to think of all the things that produce illusions within me. And I began thinking deeper about it, like pornography, social media, all these things that I would consume. And I decided to just stop it, you know. I decided to just pull out from it. Because I just felt like these things were just creating all of these illusions within my mind, and it wasn't allowing me to see clearly.
Yeah.
You know? And I think after all of these things, you know, I just start to see a lot of clarity. You know, I think my thoughts, the intelligence behind my thoughts would just rise. Like, the things that I was saying was just bigger.
Yeah.
The ideas I had would just start to evolve into like bigger things. And I started to, you know, I literally felt growth. Like I started to feel like I was evolving. And, you know, that was happening, that was taking place. And then I went to see my mother.
Wait, I need to comment on that. Okay. Because it's a very, really important thing that you said in the path towards ascension. Mm-hmm. And it has everything to do with, there's a commonality between all those things. The thinking, valuing what other people are saying, the objectification of beauty of like an object of like women or, you know, social media and the validation from maybe that, or the validation from, or like the pornography or any of these things that are, they sort of drain you of your energy, right? And this is the profound part. This is a very, very like important thing to pay attention to. A very, very important jewel, because what's happening mechanically in all of those situations is you as the spirit, the soul, is putting your energy horizontally out. It's going in the horizontal out. You're putting your energy into an external image, an outside of reflection, right? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like you're looking at the image, the illusion. But in the ascension process, you want to bring that energy up. You want to go up rather than horizontally out, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens when you go up? You know, all the masters, they point up. Jesus points up. All the G's are like, go up, go up. Mm-hmm. Don't project outward into the images that you're seeing. Go up. And up is sort of like, not like up to the cloud, another image, mm-hmm. but up on a spiritual level, which is you're going up and connecting to your higher self, to the God self within you. Because when you go out and you put your energy on an image, like a person or a thing, or like it's a projection, right? You're projecting something onto something. You're basically taking your energy and you're giving it away to these outer illusions. But when you go up, you're giving that vital life energy, you're dedicating it back to the God presence that's giving you life.
Yeah.
So you're cultivating it.
I felt like I was making a conscious decision. I was going to sneeze.
To not leave yourself.
I was making a conscious decision to choose growth more than physical preservation, satisfaction. I think for me, fundamentally, I'm really curious. You know what I mean? Like I think what really drives me is my curiosity. Like, what would happen? What could happen? And I guess thinking about the past, thinking about what I've accomplished, and I think sometimes, I just don't like being in one place. I don't like being at one level. I don't like being on the set. Like, I like growing,
Yeah. Yo.
Yo.
Steven.
What's up, dogs? How's it going, man?
How are you?
Good,
Say
man.
what up to the podcast.
Say hello.
Oh, you guys in the middle of the podcast?
Uh-huh.
Hey.
We
Back for round 2, motherfucker.
Round 2.
We got a returning podcastee.
Yo,
Steven.
seek the truth.
Seek the truth,
Yo,
baby.
you gotta...
I'm going to tell you 1 time, 2 times for your mind. Yeah.
I was going to steal that cup, but you're drinking out of it, so keep it.
You want it?
All right, no, you're good, man.
Okay.
Is this your teapot?
Man, I'm the tea man. You can't be the tea man. What the heck?
Wait, you have another teapot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I got
Okay, I was like, this is another tea.
Yeah.
This is, there's hella teas in the...
That's how the tea is. Yeah.
So I was like, damn, Steven's not having my regularly scheduled tea time. I gotta just, do it with Kenrick over here.
Seek the truth, drink tea.
Yeah.
Hey.
Tea
Alright,
is a really good truth lubricant.
I'm a what?
Tea is a really good truth lubricant.
Truth lubricant. I like that, man.
Mate.
Cheers, bro.
Alright, guys. The truth is long and hard.
The truth
Let
is
them know. Let them
the
know.
truth is long and hard.
Yeah, man. So,
This topic of this thing that you're talking about of removing, basically what's
illusions,
happening,
man. Like illusions.
you're taking
like,
the power away from the outer.
I had to really.
That's the key.
I had to.
That's so key.
And I think that I was blind for a very long time, and I think I was waking up on a deeper level at this moment because it's like shit got really real. It's like, do I want to stay in this space where I'm just feeding my mind with these fantasies and illusions, or do I really want to start looking at what's real, which is the kind of things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody has to it's like being asleep and waking up. Like everybody has to make that decision. And once again, it comes back to the self-love. It comes back to saving yourself. And so I felt like it was a moment. Last quarter was a moment where I just saved myself time, back to back to back. I was like a fucking superhero for myself. I saved myself from the fire. I saved myself from drowning. I saved myself from getting shot. I saved myself so many times. And man, I just really love myself, man. I feel like,
yes,
damn, man, like I really came through for myself. And so I think that when I started to move in that direction, I said, this is good. And I think kind of going back to the diet, I started to change my diet because I realized, I guess, I've been a huge fan of Dr. Sebi, who was a nutritionist.
Triple OG.
Who basically cured every disease that people say are incurable. He's cured them. And, he even was challenged by the Supreme Court in New York back like in the 80s, because they arrested him saying that he was making these fraudulent claims that he was curing, because he had his ads in the newspaper that he could cure all these diseases. And so, they brought him to court, and he basically won the case. And there was a point where they were like, okay, well, you need to prove evidence. Like, we need to see your patients. He brought in 77 patients who had all kinds of diseases like AIDS, sickle cell, leukemia, herpes, all kinds of shit. And they all showed the judge their diagnostics with their results by accredited hospitals and things like this, and shut everybody up. But it's fucked up because that story never got the kind of exposure or the publicity that it needed, and so I think, like, once again, he's like one of those unsung heroes, but his message is very strong, and I really start to take what he was saying to heart about how food has such a huge impact, within our being. And
I low key, that's one of the things I'm exploring now, because there's a lot you can do on a consciousness level of, like, through meditation, some of the things I teach about the tools of how to, like, reconnect yourself to your true self, like that higher self, that ascended self. But a big part of it is diet. And
it's
that's
huge.
and you can climb crazy heights through the consciousness, but because you're also connected to the identity of the physical body, the diet is one of those really key things. So go on. I just want to really say that is really important.
Yeah, it's all these, like, the physical. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
The physical, mental, and spiritual is all connected. Mm-hmm. So if there's an imbalance in one area, it's an imbalance in all areas. And the diet, it's like your body's fuel. It's your body and your mind's fuel.
The food you're eating has information. It's like everything is made of light. There's only one energy, and it's light. And everything is made of it. And if you're eating a food that has very dense vibrations and programs, like if you're eating, I've recently turned, like, vegan, because I was just so programmed by my Eastern European heritage that meat is, like, the only thing you can eat to survive. Like, if you don't eat it, you're not gonna, like, be healthy. And it's the most opposite thing ever. And as I became more wise, I was just like, think about the trauma of, first of all, I love animals, they're my friends. And eating an animal, it's hypocritical to have love for a cat and a dog, but then eat a pig or a cow, because they both have the same, like, consciousness in terms of, like, they have feelings and thoughts and things like that. So it's like you love animals, but then you're eating, like, pigs and cows and other things, right? So that doesn't make sense. And then the animal feels fear when it's being killed, and that fear is in the meat, and then that meat has that DNA programmed information, that traumatic imprint. And then if you eat it, you're feeding your body that information, because what does your body do with what it eats? It basically takes all those protons and molecules apart and puts that energy into different parts of you, and it has information, and that information, literally, big part of maintaining a positive mood has a lot to do with what you eat, and it has such a big impact. Even me eating, like, vegetarian food, plant-based food, I'm refining it, but because whenever you're feeling like when I'm not eating, I feel energized by, like, just light and love, right? But if I eat something, sometimes I'll notice my energy, like, damper down, and I'll feel, like, less energized, and maybe even my mood will feel, like, more sluggish. And I'm like, this food is supposed to energize me, not bring me down.
Right, exactly.
And
I think it's one of those things like, it all comes back to self-love. It all comes back to saving yourself. Because when you see what's available, like if you go out, like Dr. Sebi basically talks about foods that are acidic and foods that are alkaline based, you know? He talks about the pH scale, which is basically from 1 to 14. So 7 is like neutral. You could say that's like spring water. 7 to 0 is acidic. So things that exist within that is like vinegar, coffee, meats, eggs, dairy, these kinds of things. And then when you go to the opposite side, 7 and higher, those are alkaline. So that's like, greens, vegetables, fruits, seeds, things like this. And when you look at the diet or the food that's presented to the masses, there's just so many acidic things that are there.
yeah.
And not only that, but these things are addictive. Like, I had an experience when I first came back from visiting family, I fasted for like 7 days.
Fasting, especially
Yeah.
intermittent fasting, is good.
Yeah, like I was.
There's a whole
Yeah.
all the ancient masters, they would
Yeah.
fast, like they would literally fast for days, sometimes
Yeah.
like 40 fucking days, and then they would
Yeah.
get so high on, like their consciousness would raise way
Yeah.
up, and
We're gonna go deep into that in a little
Yeah.
bit, but I want to give the story. Like, and I think the fasting was because of this. Like, I began to realize the power of fasting, and my goal really was to do it for 42 days.
to not eat.
Well, basically, what I was consuming during the fast was 1 green juice. So that consisted of like kale, cucumber, ginger, and some herbs. I use moringa, burdock,
Ooh,
and
moringa.
also dandelion. They're just like powdered herbs. And also sea moss, which is something that Dr. Sebi recommends. It's kind of like this
Algae.
yeah, it's like an algae that you find like in the Caribbean waters and things like this. But it's like super nutritious, So I would drink that, and then throughout the day, just drink a lot of water and maybe like 2 apples or apple and a banana, and that was it. And I've never fasted before, so it was like a new endeavor, but I felt like I was like, okay, this is something I want to have. I want this thing to be a part of my life moving forward.
And fasting, what it does is it helps you eliminate the toxins.
It's a cleansing
It's
thing.
a cleansing. It's not just
Yeah.
that you're eating. It's not. It actually helps you clear all the toxins in your intestines and
It
that are
clears
just
you out.
sitting, chilling there.
It clears you out. Like,
But it doesn't need to be 40. It's like even in 7 days you'll get a
yeah,
lot
even
out.
7 days. But I'll tell you something. What broke the 7 days, or what broke my, because I was like, I had this urge to eat Chinese.
Yeah.
I caught the urge. I caught this carnal desire for
Yeah.
like fried rice.
Yeah.
And so I was like in my bed. I was like, you know what? Maybe 7 days is good. I was like, but I was curious. I was like, I'm desiring this thing so much and so bad. And I just thought it was so interesting. Like when you I think it's interesting. Like it's something, because some people say they're not addicted to whatever. But when you remove that thing, it's really interesting to see how you react. You really begin to learn about yourself when you remove something that you consume on a daily basis.
Yes.
And you begin to realize how dependent you are on these things.
Yeah. It's a pattern.
So,
It becomes a pattern.
Yeah, you begin to see the pattern. So I ordered some Chinese. I think I got like fried rice and some eggplant. And I ate some of the fried rice and I started feeling like shit.
Yeah.
I laid down and I could feel my inner body just feeling so terrible.
Yeah.
And I remember as I was eating, there was a moment where I said to myself, I'm full, but I still want to eat more because it tastes really good.
Yeah.
And it just made me really think about that experience, with food. It's like, I think that it's one of those things where we eat for the taste. Or at least in the past, I would eat for the taste and not eat because this thing would nourish me.
Yeah.
You eat because it tastes good.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of mentality, it only leads to bad things.
Fucks you up.
And I think from that experience, it really made me see clearly as to how important this thing was, like I said before, I'm going through all these different shifts,
this relates to just finding pleasure as your fulfillment, and you're never going to be fulfilled by pleasure.
Right.
Like, you're not going to be fulfilled by lustful desires for body images. You're not going to be ever fulfilled by, getting off on like pornography. You're never going to be fulfilled on getting off on eating something that's just like bad for you. You're not going to ever be fulfilled on these things, and it's just it robs you of the longevity of the fulfillment you can attain if you decide and make, like you said, you make the decision to say, look, I studied this, and even if you sort of like relapse, but you relapse with a mindfulness, that mindfulness while you're relapsing sort of helps eliminate the desire, because you're relapsing, then you're like, oh, like now I know why I stopped this, and it just creates an even stronger validation for your decision to not do it.
Yeah, it was a very profound experience I had by myself, because like I said, I think in all these situations I had to make a conscious decision. I had to choose, do I want to continue doing it this way and stay in this same place I've always been, or do I want to move up?
Yeah.
Like I had
you got to save yourself.
Yeah, each moment I had to make a conscious decision. Do I want to save myself? Do I want to move higher,
Yeah.
And
because it's easier sort of to think that it's more comforting to stay where you are.
Oh, yeah,
but it does become uncomfortable, and then you just have to,
It's literally choosing life or death.
Yeah.
You're choosing life or death.
You're choosing death consciousness or life consciousness.
Right. And the things you're consuming is there's no life to it. So it's like you have to make a decision. And I think there was some shame. I think a part of me felt kind of bad, because I was like, man, like I was going for 42 days. But then a part of me was also like, well, 7 days was pretty good. We're just starting this out. And then I was like, I have to be loving to myself. Like,
no matter
what. And then I also began to think, I was like, this needed to happen, because I was desiring this fried rice so bad. And then I start to see and experience what it was doing to my body and how damaging it was to my body as it was going down.
Yet again.
Down my system, And so it was just a moment of like just really beginning to see things for what they were,
Yeah.
And I think now I'm just more mindful of that kind of stuff,
It carries on to like really, when you start making decisions about between life and death consciousness, it sort of carries on to every single thing.
It carries on to everything, because I think when we go about our days, everything that you do, like
even a thought, even a feeling, are you going to identify with a self-deprecating idea about yourself? Or are you going to what about in the food? What about the way you talk to people? What about your action? What about your decision? Everything is life and death.
Like I have because I have like a few things on my wall. Like
it reminds me of this quote: "I die daily, I ascend daily." I die daily to my old, carnal, unconscious decisions. I die those decisions, those actions those patterns. Die to those, and I ascend daily to my more expansive identifications. But okay, go on.
I think when you live that way, you really understand the intensity of life. But it's like
the intensity.
But it's like
the vigor and vitality of it.
Because on my wall, I have like a few things, like I guess certain phrases that I like to remember before I leave the house, and one of it is like everything you say, think, or do has an energetic vibration.
Yeah.
And I think that I always think of any decision you make or anything that you do with your being, you're choosing between life and death. You're choosing between love and fear, and it's like all the time, and you have to like.
It's really that simple. You're either choosing a negative choice or a positive choice, a choice that's not serving you or a choice that is serving you.
Right, and
there's a need to be clear on whether the thing you're choosing is actually serving you or it's not.
Right. So I was kind of.
And you can make a negative choice serve you in a positive way by going. Sort of like you did with the desire. For example, if you have a negative desire to relapse into something a bad habit, right? Because you want to break the habit, but you have such a strong desire that you have to break the habit. Don't beat yourself up about it. Break the habit, but go into breaking the habit with a mindfulness and use it in a positive way to understand even deeper in a more embodied way. Not just logical, in your bones that listen, now I see even more why this is making me feel like shit, you know?
I think
making it much easier to choose the life choice next time.
Right.
Strengthening it.
I think the most important thing is to have the intention to ascend, like, because you have to be patient with yourself. You know, I think with people who are trying to, because here's the thing, I think as a society, we kind of look down upon drug addicts, you know, people who are addicted to drugs, whether it be crack or cocaine or LSD or whatever, but we're so addicted to so many things as human beings. Like, we're addicted to tradition, we're addicted to food,
power,
we're addicted to sex, power, ownership,
wealth.
We're addicted to a lot of things, you know. Validation. Like, these things were so, and it's kind of like an unconscious thing. See, like with drugs,
it's pretty clear.
It's labeled, you know. It's kind of like you're in this category. I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
We go to AA, you know what I'm saying, to like get our shit straight. But the truth is that within these kinds of constructed societies, a lot of people are addicted to many things.
And I say that the greatest addiction we have is our addiction to separation. It's to the belief that we're separate.
Yeah.
And that's why we give our power away to outer images to get love from those outer images. So everything you're talking about and we're talking about right now is the idea of giving basically we're beggars. We're eating that food to get a little bit of pleasure out of it because we can't find pleasure in ourselves. We got to get it from the outer image, from the food. Okay, we can't feel that love, self-fulfillment within ourselves. So we got to go with and get look at pornography or have sex with somebody to feel a little bit of pleasure. We don't feel that fulfillment, that self-love for ourselves. So we got to go on get get people to like us on, you know, by posting shit and trying really hard to get people to like us, just to feel somebody saying I like you because you're so cool for doing that, or this, that, and the other. And it's all having to do with giving our power away to the outer image, because we don't and the key with ascension is you cut the snake at its core, the head of the hydra, and you cut it off at the head, so no more heads at the base. So that because all those things are outer images that you're trying to get a little bit of love from. You're trying to get a little bit of love from that person, from this thing, from that thing, from this accomplishment, from maybe a validation from your family, a validation from society, a validation for your art, for your endeavor, to make you feel like you are worth something, to make you feel like you have, that you can be, these things are giving you love, and you feel like if you don't try to get love from these outer images, you're not going to feel love for yourself, and then you're emptying then you're nothing. But when you cut it off at the head and you go within and you go up and you ascend, you get your love straight from the source, baby. Mm-hmm. You get your love straight from the presence, the I am presence, because the miraculous thing about it is, if you think about it, What's been with you since your birth? What's with you right now? What's with you after your image of yourself, your identity of your lower image of your persona is going to pass on? What's with you this whole time? It's the presence. It's the God self. Right now, in this moment, you and me, our images, are being sustained by the one energy that we share as that true identity that we are at our core, that one energy that we all are made of. It's giving us life. It's giving us, right now, it's giving us the ability to say something. It's giving us the ability to have a thought. It's giving us the ability to make a choice between life and death consciousness. And when we make the choice to go to life consciousness, we make the choice to connect with our source. And our source is, in this moment, the greatest ally we have. And it's the ally that we've put our attention away from and put our attention on things outside of ourselves, of these images. But the source is giving life to those images too. So when we go and get our love from directly the God self, the I am presence, the source of our very being, which we are connected to right now, it's giving us life. It's like, like the closest people to you that support you the most. Oftentimes people don't give value to those people that give us the highest support, no matter if we're successful or not. A lot of times we try to get validation from people that don't really care about us, because the people that care about us and are really there for us through ups and downs, we take for granted because, we already know they're giving us love, and we're just like, they're gonna, we just take for granted. But when you cut off all those illusions, you start giving the value back to who is truly giving you that love. And it comes to the people that are closest to us to support us no matter what. And beyond that, the thing that supports us the most no matter what is our very being, our very God self, our very source, our very I am presence. And when we start to create a relationship with that, that's true ascension. Because in this moment, what's there for us is the source. And the source is always loving us, always giving us love to have an ability to have an experience. And I mean, it's like a unconditionally loving mother and father that's just, it's like, here's this pranic life energy. You can do whatever you want with it. I love you. You're valid. You're here. Use this. Use my energy like you're my son. You're my child. You're my daughter. This mother, father, God image of source is giving us this like pranic life, cosmic breath energy. And we don't give it the proper the proper acknowledgement. But I said earlier, way beginning in this conversation, how like we got to give ourselves a pat on the back for appreciating every step of ascension and appreciating all the accomplishments and things we've done for humanity and for ourselves. But the thing we got to appreciate the most is give credit to that essence that's giving us that life, because all the accomplishments come from that. All the ability to even do those accomplishments come from that. And that's the thing that needs to be acknowledged every moment, and not the actual, we build our ego up, but our ego is given life by that presence. And that's the thing that the reason we're in such shambles as a society is because people have forgotten the source that's giving them life. Yeah. And when we praise the Son image, the Mother, Father, God image, that's literally loving us so much that it's giving us the juice right now. It's giving us the juice right now. It loves us unconditionally enough to the point where it's saying, yo, you can make a decision and play in the death consciousness if you want. I love you so much, I'm going to give you life. You have free will. You can decide to focus on going away from me and forgetting about me and not acknowledging the love I'm giving you. And you can go and give your love to anything but me, and I'll still love you. Yeah. You can go and make positive choices about yourself, and I'll love you then. It supports us through anything. And I think that's the thing we gotta never forget, is the love for our Creator, which we are one with.
That's extremely beautiful, man. And I'm so happy that we're saying all of these things vocally, because I think, we think about I know for sure that we both think about these things all the time, but I think it's a beautiful thing for people, for it to just be heard, And I had to say something. I have something on my mind. I feel like when you become aware of all of this, I'm kind of at a point now where, because we hear about a lot of problems that are in the world, like whether it be in politics or wars or these kinds of conflicts. But to me, this experience of choosing between life and death as an individual is the greatest thing. I think, and I also feel like if I don't hear, if I speak to somebody and they're not speaking in the tone that we're speaking, I know that they're not seeing everything clearly. I know that they're dealing with illusions.
Yeah.
I know that they're dealing with limitations.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm judging. I just know.
Yeah. And there's compassion for
There's
that.
compassion, but I think it's one of those things now. I'm at a point where I can really tell,
Yeah.
who's really speaking, who's really communicating and saying something with it. Because I think it's you have to feel a sense of urgency, I think, when you understand all of this. And especially when you're in the midst of so many people who limit themselves, And I think it gets, it's a case where it's like people close to you, I think that was interesting with my visiting my parents, because I can, at this age now, see the limitations they put upon themselves.
Yeah.
Very clearly.
Yeah. Just by how they're defining themselves, their experience, and their life.
Yeah, just, little things that, like, for example, I was talking to my mother about what she looks into a man, or like what she thinks is important for a man, because my mother is, dating, she sees people and all that. And so she was saying, he needs to treat me right, and he needs to be polite, he needs to like be caring and these kinds of things, which are good things to have, of course. And then she asked me, what do you like in a woman? I said, I like a woman who loves herself, And then she was like, I think I was asking her, what do you think self-love is, And then she was like, well, I feel like self-love is when a man buys himself a $300 shoe, not a $100 shoe. When he spends more on himself. And I think for me, it was kind of like a moment when I realized my mother is in a very kind of material, she thinks within the physical world very often. Her way of love, I think her idea of love and affection exists within the material world. And, I was explaining to her, I said, for me, self-love is when somebody basically saves himself, when they overcome something. And it's not to say that what she said, it wasn't valid.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I was basically trying to express that it goes deeper.
Yeah.
Like it goes deeper than just that.
Yeah.
When you see somebody who saves himself, who is improving themselves,
then they truly love themselves.
That's how you know. And I think when you have a partner like that, you could do whatever, and there's just like infinite like I was saying, I think a relationship is productive when both individuals are growing.
When both individuals have the type of consciousness we're speaking about.
That's when it's the best.
That's when it's and the challenge is every individual has the potential to identify with this level of consciousness. Every individual. That's what Jesus was saying, is like, don't worship me. I'm just holding a certain type of perspective. I'm trying to be an example of this perspective and let you know that you can embody the same perspective and have that perspective produce the harvest that is, the same type of harvest for you as it is doing for me, of life consciousness, of life, of prosperity, of true prosperity, of oneness with God and self and presence. And what's interesting is that every individual has that capacity to make those choices, to save themselves and love themselves in a way where they're choosing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like on this planet we have this idea that there's counterparts. We have certain counterparts that would fit very nicely with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we talk about soulmates or twin flames, or these romanticized ideas of where like each soul has sort of its other half, and I mean, we're all one at the higher level, and at that higher level we're already one with that other half, and we're not actually separate at that higher level. That's the level that we need to raise ourselves to, is to recognize that we're already at that point. And we don't need to find it in the outer. It's already, if you go up, you already see that you're already there. But if you see it at that point, you'll have the reflection in the outer match it. And the challenge is oftentimes is you cannot save another person. Every person needs to make those decisions themselves. You have to say to yourself, I'm going to decide to love myself and save myself and make the decisions where I'm not buying into the illusions anymore, and I'm going to look at what's real and look at the spirit rather than going into the 7 deadly sins of lust or greed or envy or wrath or gluttony or sloth or all that. And the challenging thing is when you see a counterpart or a partner that has maybe a match or a high level of that match, but then the limitation is still blocking that connection, and you as the presence needs, it's almost like you can't, you're talking about explaining to people like the possibility of another choice they can make, is that's what I'm saying is you can only be an example of your own ability to choose life consciousness for yourself,
right.
and you can't make other people choose it, whether it's a romantic partner, a business partner, a family member, anybody. And
I used to think
that's the responsibility we have as creators and artists, is we have to continue to put out images, raise ourselves up into this perspective, into this consciousness, and then create content, create art, create examples that reflect that, so that other people can see that they even have a choice. Because people that are struggling in these limitations, it's hard for them to make, if there's no people that are showing them that open door, that there's a possibility even.
Right.
It's hard to
know.
It's even harder.
And it's,
I mean, there's many masters and texts and things that you could, if you really, really want to make the decision, you could find the information. But the more people that are embodying it and living it, the faster we ascend as a collective. And the profound thing that as I developed this relationship with the presence, with the God source, with this higher identity, is you come to realize that the greatest relationship you could develop is with your relationship to the presence, with your God self. That's the number one relationship to develop. All the other things are reflections of that energy, of your, and so if you develop that relationship, that's what will give you the ultimate inner stability, because you're not going to find it in any person, any accomplishment, any family member, any authority, anything. Even your own body, you're not going to find it even in your own image. You'll only find it in your relationship with that presence. And that's, I was going to say something else with that, but that relationship is the key relationship. Because you were saying, as you start to find that connection, what do you do from there? What you do from there is you begin to develop that relationship at a deeper level. And one of the things that I find of how I develop that relationship is through meditation, through a quiet, silent space of like how you say we go into sort of like a reflective space.
Right.
You start to feel the actual love that you're being given by your God self right now. And it's an actual energy. We talked about very early in this conversation about the senses, sensing. And if you start to sense that really understand that right now you're being given life energy to breathe, to think, and that energy is being given to you abundantly and freely. And how loving is that? And as you start to really understand that profound relationship that you've had since your birth of you, who you say you are, and continue to develop that love, like you start to actually feel a love that you have for that source, as if it's a personified thing. Because think about the love you have for somebody that gives you a lot of love in your life, like in a way, like somebody like that's just always just there for you.
Mama,
and
like mother.
Yeah, like your mother, right? But your physical mother it's a blessing when you have a really good physical mother or physical father. But the cosmic mother, the cosmic father, they're another level, and they're giving you love, quantum love. They're an open door access to anything you want, any creative thing you want to think about. They'll give it to you. They love you so much. They're giving you so much love right now, so much love. And once we start cutting off our outer reaching, our horizontal projections onto trying to get love from these outer things, and start to go up and start to really feel and develop and cultivate the relationship with the cosmic mother and cosmic father, which is giving us birth, from which our very projection of our self-image arises, we're birthed from the ground of their cosmic mother-father essence. When we start to really make a real practical, cultivate that connection, it becomes more potent. We start to feel the love we're always being given. We start to understand how much of it is actually being given. And when we cultivate it, we are able to receive more of it because we're more aware of it. And then we're seeing how much is given and how much we've been shutting ourselves off from receiving it because we've been looking for it in these horizontal projections. Therefore, think about this in a practical, mechanical way where your attention is what you have to direct your life. What you put your attention on is what expands. If you focus a lot about, I want to be a great artist, that expands. You have more opportunities. If you focus on what does it mean, when people study science, they really ask these questions. What is a molecule? They dive deeper in it. They find that it's like there's an atom, and under that is a quark, and under that is nothing. It's your attention expands the information you get from it. So what we've been doing is we've been living in this death consciousness of giving our attention to illusions, like you were saying. And once we cut off that illusion and only give our attention to the cosmic mother father, to that infinite energy that's being given to us, how much more of that expands is limitless.
I have a confession to make. So, and this is probably one of the most weirdest experiences I've ever had. But, earlier I was talking about smoking marijuana. And there was one moment when I was lying on my bed, and I think I had my my earplugs, like a little bit, they were kind of like on my ears, just like a little bit, right? And I had my eyes closed. And I just started to talk to the thing. And I was like, go up, go up, go up, go up. And I can feel that shit slowly moving.
The earplug.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, it's like I kind of freaked the fuck out, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? But I was like, damn. You're telling me I can use my mind. Like, that shit is... I think it was like one of those points where I began to think, like...
What is reality? And how we're shaping it.
Yeah.
And who's shaping it.
Basically. So when that happened, I was just... I think it was one of those small moments. And I think now, when I do smoke, there is this kind of curiosity, could I really use my mind alone to begin to just physically move things around? And
it has nothing to do with smoking and everything to do with
but I think for sure. But I feel like my mind is in such a healthy place where I'm thinking of these things now.
Yes.
You know, now I'm making goals before I die to move things from my mind.
Yes.
You know, or to just take what we think human beings can do to like another level.
Well, this is the fascination. This is what I'm exploring. This is that inner exploration. This is the fascination. These are groundbreaking things of the ascension. This is what actually the ascended masters can do. When you actually raise your frequency high enough and you stop giving your power away to these illusions and you start to cultivate that infinite power, that connection to that mother, father, cosmic energy, right? What happens is you start to raise your personal frequency. What?
I thought you were about to say that motherfucking cosmic energy. You said motherfucker. I could have sworn you were about to say it, but you start to raise that motherfucking cosmic energy. I'm sorry. I could have, like, I would just, I don't know, like, that thought just came in my mind.
Yeah, no, that's good. Humor is important.
But yeah, keep going. I'm sorry to cut you off.
We got to stay humorous. Humor, there's a lot of high potent energy in humor.
Yes.
But
that motherfucking cosmic energy.
Oh, I'm lit.
You know what I'm saying? But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So,
yeah.
This is what I was telling you earlier, of creating a program of how to step by step reconstruct yourself so that you can create a stable enough foundation to be able to permanently ascend and transform your vehicle so that it can be compatible with that type of thing. So we were talking about Ascended Master Saint Germain, who's one of my idols. He's a human that raised his consciousness to a level to where the consciousness was so identified with the God I Am presence that it was then able to, from that perspective, transform the projected self-image, which is still just an image within the consciousness. Our body is a tool. Once you raise your consciousness to that level, you can transform your body, and what you do is you rewire the chakra system. You create geometries. Basically, think of your body, your personality, as a cup that holds X amount of information, light energy, right? Like a computer, right? And it has X certain amount of hardware and software. Once you start uninstalling software that's taking your energy away, and once you start from that higher perspective upgrading your hardware, meaning like you can process more information faster, then you can literally transform your vehicle and stabilize yourself in this cosmic consciousness, and then you start to realize who's the one creating. You're one with that presence. You're one with that higher you that you're creating that loving relationship with. That's an aspect of you. Once you start to identify with it in a real practical way, this is what the program I'm developing is all about. Once you start to develop that real identity as you and take a leap, it's a quantum leap from being identified as a limited human to a cosmic self. Once you become that cosmic self and really understand that who you are is the one that's shaping the world. And we think it's the human that's making these choices, but it's the presence that's giving the energy for the human to make that choice. That's why when you connect with that presence, you start to realize that everything comes from it. It doesn't come from you, Kenrick, or me, Maxim, It comes from the presence, and it's being filtered through Maxim or Kenrick like a projector. And when you start to realize that you're not the human, it's like we have this idea of the false center. We think we're the projector, like we're the radio set, but we're the energy that's moving through the radio set. And once you start to take your identity from identifying with, because your body is another illusion that you're identifying with, and it's one of the last illusions that one must overcome after you overcome these other 7 deadly sins and all these. There's a whole thing.
Yeah. It's like a step-by-step thing. Yeah.
It's a step-by-step thing. But once you overcome once you have the realization that you're also an illusion of who your ego is not who you are. you start going deeper and realizing that you're the presence that's running energy through that image. Then when you speak, reality changes like that, because it's made of you. And this program, this process, it helps create that step-by-step identification with that higher you.
Yeah, dude, I think that's something I'm thinking about more and more.
That's the ascension alchemy, yeah.
Yeah, I think about that more and more. Like, I think of things, and I think of identity more energetically now than ever before.
Yeah,
and I've recently,
it's not so solid.
Yeah, I've been recently performing as a performer, and it's kind of funny how it came about. Like,
so before you get into your story, the last comment I wanted to make on that, what's possible, is in a real way, once we make that actual leap into that quantum leap in identity, from that limited self into the cosmic self, from the human to the divine being that we are, and by really making that leap, I don't mean just intellectually. I don't mean just for one moment and the next moment we're back to a limited human identification. I mean a permanent leap, like a stable, consistent identification, like second nature. We're now the presence. We're no longer the mortal self, right? We're no longer identified with the mortal self. Once we truly make that leap, and it's an ascension process, it's a step-by-step process where every time we save ourselves, like you say, and choose that higher expanded identification, we start getting closer to embodying it more and more every time. But then there comes a time where it crystallizes. In the alchemical lineage, they call it the philosopher's stone. We are the philosopher's stone. When we become, our body is the stone itself, and the stone is a stable identification of the cosmic self, meaning the body is like the rock that holds the cosmic consciousness. And when we actually alchemize that and become the stone in a permanent way, then we're playing an entirely different game. And the entire reflection, the game, everything changes. We're literally then in an ascended master where we have the abilities of the presence. And the abilities of the presence, the cosmic self, are far greater than the abilities that any human identity can ever achieve. Human identity cannot do the things the cosmic identity can do, because it has a different limits. It has boundaries. Cosmic self, those boundaries aren't there. And some of the things that the ascended masters can do, they can do anything because they have access to the one. And the one has all infinite possibility and capability just wherever you put the attention. But so some of the things they can do are, and this is child's play stuff, these are like very small basic things. Like they can do, these are like fundamental basic things of the powers that you can do as a quantum self. You can rematerialize, dematerialize your body at will, because you know it's just a projection of you. You can make any object appear at will, because you know that it's just a projection of you. You can remove limitation from other reflections, because you could clearly see it, because you can be their mind, you can be them, because there's no separation between you and them. You can you have mastery over the four elements, and everything here is made of the four elements, and with that you're basically the master of the reality, because you become the reality. And that those are the exciting things that I think are the greatest art. That's an art, I think when you're shaping yourself like that, that's a high love art.
That's high art.
You're the object, you're the art piece. Your consciousness is the marble that you're sculpting. Your consciousness is that's the kind of artist I look at myself as. That's what I think the true alchemist is. It's an alchemist that's a spiritual alchemist that's transforming the lead aspects of their consciousness into gold. And when you can do that, then you can turn everything physical into gold, because
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, all of those things sound very appealing to me, and
But it
because
takes a
I
lot
think
of courage.
it takes a
to
lot
do
of
that.
courage, but I think ultimately as an artist, you want to keep going higher
Mm-hmm.
because you do something and then you realize how much that something has allowed you to grow,
Yeah.
and that development is like a journey. It's a crazy journey, and so you kind of, I think that naturally for me, that's the stuff that I'm really into. But I wanted to talk about this new experience
Mm-hmm.
as a performing artist. And it's interesting how it came about because, like I said, I was taking an Uber. I forgot where I was going. I was going to some event. And maybe like a few minutes I think I was going to Home Depot actually. And maybe a few minutes in the car, the driver said, "Hey, like I have this event. Every Saturdays, me and my wife put on this open mic thing, and it's like down the street from where I live." And he's like, "Yeah, if you guys do music, if you guys know anybody who makes music, come through." And when he said that, I don't know, automatically, I just kind of knew that this was something good to be a part of. Just how this could be a fun experience. So I got his information. I put it down. Later that night, I was thinking if I should go or not, because sometimes you kind of get lazy. Maybe it's like 10 o'clock at night. Maybe I should just stay inside. But then I was like, no, let's just go. Let's just check it out. So I go there, and once I get in, it's like a beautiful vibe. It's like a really good energy. It's like a little small kind of like it was basically like in their house, so it was like very like compressed, but in a good way. And they had like a little arrangement where they had their instruments. They had like some like Congo drums, little kind of similar to this, but like it had like a bass.
Yeah.
And the driver was on the guitar, and they were just jamming out. And for me, I was just sitting in the audience, just thinking I would just watch the show, and then they were like, "Hey man, come up and do a song or whatever." And so they turned on this instrumental, and I just started to kind of just do whatever. But I was in a state where I didn't really care about how I was being perceived or whatever. I think that it just looked really fun to me, so I just kind of threw myself into it. And I think as the night went, as we kept jamming out, the music and the ideas that I was coming up with just got more and more, much more fascinating, much more powerful, I guess, much more effective, to the point they were just like, damn. And like the end of the night, they were kind of like, well, it was kind of funny. So at the end, they were just like, "Bro, like, you got some shit, man. Like, you got some fucking shit, And I was just like, well, I guess I don't really, I was just having a good time. But I know that there was a kind of, like you were talking about, when you put your focus into something, I can feel myself getting deeper and deeper and becoming more and more, seeing myself as sound, or seeing myself really be kind of, I think when I do well musically is when I remove myself from my body, and I begin to have sex. I'm at the peak when I'm having sex with sound, like when I'm having a kind of sexual experience with the music, Like there's just like an exchange. There's this like real physical exchange.
Interpenetration,
like a kind
energies.
Of, yeah, like it really happens.
Low key, everything's fucking. All the energies.
When it's in a good, like even when I was talking about the headphones, it was in a very kind of romantic way. The way that I was speaking to the headphone was like the same way you would speak to like your dearest lover, or somebody who you're just very passionate about. And I started to kind of realize
how important actual love is?
Well, just like how huge. I think that when we think about lovemaking, or like the physical act of lovemaking, like, I actually feel like that should really, how can I say? I think it's like the greatest metaphor for getting to these kinds of levels that you're talking about, where you're able to start doing these things. Because I feel like when I think about things musically, when I think about my experiences musically, I get to a point, it goes deep. Maybe like in the beginning, the first couple minutes, I'm just shy because I am in front of all these people.
Yeah.
And I still sometimes will see myself, and this is something I'm overcoming at the moment. Like I say to myself, well, I'm not like any experienced musician. I don't have the history of it, But after I like get off of that shit and like start to just get deeper into the being of like sound itself,
The feeling
of sound itself, like really magical things begin to happen. And I begin to like really play, and I really begin to explore it, and it gets really interesting, And so I say that to say this. I think that this new endeavor is giving me an opportunity it's like training for me to learn how to get out of myself, get out of my ego. Because when I'm on stage, I feel the presence of my ego, Because there's like certain things that you do, right? You introduce yourself. Your body is there. Everything you do, people are seeing every gesture that you make. And it's kind of like a battle for me. Like for the few times that I perform, I realize it's kind of like a certain tension that exists when I'm in front, because there is a part of me that is conscious of my physical being in front of these other physical beings.
Yeah.
And there's another part of me that wants to connect with the music.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a really amazing opportunity to like learn how to just become one with the music without having to even, and being like, I think it's just like a really good exercise. It's training myself to really not see things physically but energetically.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like even the people who are there, like really just see things energetically. Because within painting, it's very much a one-on-one kind of thing. You're doing you're by yourself, and you're dealing with yourself, and you go out, you take a step outside of your own physical self. But when you're performing, you're doing that in front of people.
Yeah.
You're like, it's like you're like a magician almost. Like you're having to transform in front of everybody's eyes.
Yeah.
And that is like, to me, it's like next level.
Yeah.
Because before I would do it privately.
Yeah.
But now I'm doing it
It's
publicly.
easier privately.
Yeah, it's easier privately because, for some people, it could still be a challenge,
Yeah.
Like, for some people, that's all they know, or maybe they're afraid, or they hold on to the physical self, and it shows in their work. But, like, we're kind of expressing that there's these other levels of existence that's there.
Yeah.
And all we have to do is be aware and to choose. You know? And I feel like right now it's really amazing that I'm getting this opportunity to challenge myself in this different way, and be using this kind of performance opportunity to learn how to transform more frequently, and to try to eventually get to a point where that's the only thing I see.
Energy.
Energy.
Spirit. Light.
I think that within...
distinctions of it.
Yeah, I think within our society, within the physical world, there's going to be moments where you have to like put on that mask or put on the ego.
That's
and
the thing
and
is...
the thing is...
You don't.
Like, let me explain.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be moments, like, for example, if I go to a receptionist or if I'm going for a job interview, maybe that's a better example. I know that if I want to get this job, I have to compose myself a certain way in order to meet their standards, you know? Ultimately I know that this whole thing is an illusion. But, you know, I still need to be able to, you know, pay my bills, do this and that and the other.
And that what I'll say is that's even a level to overcome too. Because if you feel like, when we feel like we need to meet a standard of something else, there's still an illusion there.
For sure.
And instead of
that's why I express putting on a mask, because I know for a fact that none of this is real. None of this has any kind of real significance. You know what I'm saying?
Except for the significance we give it.
Right.
And
so I think that it's one of those things where I guess what I'm trying to say is that I want to be able to shift at will easily, like
to the point where you don't have to shift and you can stay as that energetic divine being and have the courage.
It's a conscious choice. Like it's a conscious choice to step out of that.
Yes,
and to go back in.
And the alchemy is to become that philosopher's stone that I was saying, to the point where you don't have to keep going back into the limited you, because the reason that we feel like we need to go back into the limited us and put on a certain mask to interact with people is because we have a distrust that we'll be able to connect with them if we don't. You know, we feel like if we don't put on that mask, we won't be able to connect with them. But I'll say that that's a block, that's an illusion that could be cut out, because the true presence, like if you stay in that authentic self and you interact with somebody without sort of fitting into a way, you know, you're always going to be able to need to connect with somebody, but there's still a way to do it where you don't dilute or limit your projection, you know, self, right? And the thing I really want to comment on that you said right before this is the idea of the love, because that is something that is really important, I think, and something that I'm exploring, and what you're talking about with the sound and how you eliminate yourself from the equation, so to speak. You sort of, there's no separation. There's no longer a you that's separate from the people. It's just the sound now. You're no longer like, I'm here and there's people there. What really happens mechanically is it's just your focus is not on me and the other. It's just the sound now, or the energy, right? And there's no like duality in there anymore. So and how you said like about the earphone, or you know, moving the earphone, talking to it like a passionate lover, or the sound, you know, the key way of you snapping into just seeing just the sound is your loving sort of approach to it, right? And what I was going to say on that is, in manifestation, what I found is once you start connecting more of your with the identity of you as that presence, you begin to realize that the manifestation occurs into the degree that you give it loving attention. So it's like you can think about something happening a lot, but if you're not really looking at it in that loving way, if you're not connecting through that love, it doesn't respond to you like as well, you know? It's like when you really dive deep into it and almost become one with it, that's when I think you hit the real love. Is like when you eliminate yourself as separate from it, and it's just a loving experience
it's when only the love exists. And I think it was such a profound experience with the headphones, because I remember that was the only thing that I felt.
The love? Yeah, talk about it a little bit, deeper on that.
Yeah, it was like there was a lot of peace. This was maybe like 15 seconds. But within that 15 seconds, I experienced a lot of shit. Like, I was very comfortable. I was very empty. You know, the only thing that was on my mind, I just felt a lot of love and peace within myself.
Yes.
And
then what happened?
And then I don't know, for some out of nowhere, like this desire to have this thing move just kind of came in my mind.
Yeah.
And the way I was speaking to this headphone, and I was just like, you know, move up, kind of like in a very flirty kind of like manner. Like,
yeah.
Like I said before, in a very like loving, playful kind of manner. And
describe that loving, playful manner.
Well, the only way I could describe it is how you would speak to somebody you're really passionate about. Like, if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or and maybe you guys are like cuddling, or you know, in a very kind of romantic state, where
like really passionate,
like,
deep love.
Yeah, there's a moment I think with couples when you're in a very, and that doesn't have to be sex, but you're in a state of just pure romance,
pure
and
love,
and the energy is just bouncing back and forth. It could even be with a friend or a family, but there's just like a moment where the love is just there.
Yeah.
And it's felt by both, and it's just like going back and forth, you know?
And like increasing, like a explosion of ecstasy. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, sometimes it lasts for a few seconds, sometimes it lasts longer. But I was feeling that with this headphone.
An inanimate, so to speak, object.
Yeah. And all of us, as I was kind of saying to myself, like, move up,
yeah.
move up, baby. The shit was moving up.
Yeah.
And then I freaked the fuck out. And then it just stopped, you know.
And then it stopped moving up when you freaked out.
It stopped because I felt fear.
Yeah.
Because I started to I just felt fear, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And but I think there's something similar that happens when I'm with the music. It's like, even with painting, you know,
There's a key there. There's a secret there in that description of the headphone story of that reality. There's that loving conversation to the point where you feel pure love. If you can apply
everything else disappears. Like, and that's the thing. Like, love is the only thing that exists. The only thing that's real. Like, you talk about this divine cosmic force or energy. That's the only thing that exists, and everything else is an illusion.
Yeah. And
when you get to that point, the way I see it, it's like when you are able to exist at that point where you're living in the highest of truths, I think that's when you get to that level where you could just manipulate reality as
but it's done through love. You're not manipulating it.
Yeah, you can't.
You're sort of asking with allowance that it doesn't have to do that, but it's just so much love.
Yeah, the love.
You're not like forcing it. You're not making it. You're not. You know what I mean? It's a different thing, and
I know it's real.
Very scientific.
It's extremely scientific. I think that sometimes when we talk about these things, people think it's romantic, and it is romantic. But I think fundamentally it's something that's scientific. It's something that's mechanical.
Yes.
This is not something that's wishy-washy.
Yeah, and that's my whole aim with this sort of inner exploration and this alchemy and this ascension and these things we talk about is they're very, very scientific.
Because I could say
they're as scientific as any outer science.
Because going back to when I was talking about
even more so.
Like when I was talking about the paintings, for example, I said to you, there is a moment where I surpass my consciousness in the painting. The painting process, and there's also a moment where I surpass my ego, and I get into a certain zone where I'm only focusing on what I'm doing, like just the process. And from that experience, I hit certain areas. I hit parts of myself that I didn't even know existed, and I think that this can be applied not only to painting but to everything and anything that you do, say, or think. This act of like going so deep to unlock new things.
And it has to do with love.
That's
the key. Love is the key to ascension.
And I was going to say too,
it has the key to saving yourself. It's the key to positive choices.
That's why I say self-love is so big, because once again, I think I say this to people, but I feel like they think I'm naive when I say it.
Yeah.
I think they may confuse it with me being overly optimistic.
Yeah. They don't
But
see
this
there's
is
a
like
science.
this is actually the energy. This is energy that we can use to go higher. You know what I'm saying? And it starts with yourself. The
There is
decisions
only
you
yourself.
make, there's only yourself. The decisions you make, you're always going to be able to choose between this force or death. You know, basically. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But when you choose that love, you start to gain abilities that bring you higher. It just brings you higher. You start to be able to, and within anything that you do, it can be applied to anything. You know, it's like this amazing force.
That's what the Jedi use.
Yeah, I mean, we see it in mythology, we see it in storytelling, but the thing about these myths is that a lot of real things are integrated into mythology, and I think a lot of people miss out. And that's the whole thing. That's like Joseph Campbell's whole practice. It's like, let's look at these myths and let's really begin to break down all of these roles and archetypes that we see.
Right.
And we need to begin to realize that we all have to play that hero's role. This is not something, you know, it's funny, like in high school, I used to see myself separate from rebels or for revolutionaries. Or like I would watch civil rights, for example, like study about this kind of thing, and just think that my generation or myself, like I don't have to do that. Like that's something else. That's not me. And it's pretty amazing to think back at that now, because now I realize that everybody has to play that King Martin Luther King role. Everybody has to play that Jesus role. Everybody has to play that Gandhi role. Everybody has to play, you know, that role.
Yeah.
You know,
Of saving
themselves. This is not something that is only for these people. It's just that they had the courage. The people that we say are great geniuses, whatever, they just had the courage to choose life instead of death. Like it takes
in a world of death.
In a world of death, you know, in a world of death, they chose life. And when we talk about the greatest people on the planet who've changed those are the people who elevate human potential. Those are the people who actually bring life and possibilities to new heights within all areas. You know, so that's why I say, like, I'm kind of at a point now where if I'm not around folks or if I interact with people, I can tell very clearly now where they're coming from. If they're speaking from a space of love and infinity, or if they're speaking from a place of
death and
limitation. And I learn either way. You know, I can just sit back and just observe. I don't judge, but just kind of take it in and say, you know, just really be appreciative of the experience, for one. And for two, try to either, for those who speak of limitation, give them another option. And for those who speak of infinity, really try to cover myself with their words, like bathe myself with their message. Like shower, like you know, oh yeah, that's right, I do need to remember this, you know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like how I'm moving in the world right now.
Yeah, every time we remember our infinite self it's a blessing.
It's huge.
And every time, and we can use a limited reflection to remind us of our infinity too. Yeah. So technically in life consciousness, you could use people that are coming from separation and limitation to remind yourself of your infinity, and you could use people that are coming from life and infinity consciousness to remind yourself of infinity too. Mm-hmm. It's like once you really dive deep into it, you discover that you're dreaming, you're the dreamer of the dream, and you're in your own dream, and you start to see that all the limitation is there to shock you into lucidity, to recognize, to remind you that this limitation is put here to wake me up, so that because once you really become the dreamer of the dream, you can instantly take that limitation and bring it back into the neutral one light and use it in a positive way to wake yourself up. And everybody in our world is a reflection of our collective self. If you really zoom out of your personal self and start to realize all of the minds of humanity are inside you, and even the galaxies and the minds of those stars and the universes are all inside you, you do your utmost to wake up the other parts of your consciousness as in those other people. And when we really step into the power, and everybody listening, that's the responsibility to first step into their own power individually to save themselves, and then to save their own outer reflections, which are themselves too. And to do that by challenging the death consciousness, by courageously embodying life consciousness in every opportunity, even when you may be afraid to be your greatest self because people aren't going to connect or judge you or feel weird. If you don't have the courage to hold your infinity in the face of limitation, then you're not giving those people the opportunity to choose that infinity too. And that's the real alchemy is when love is the greatest power and force, and it can literally take command, and it's more powerful than any violence or fear or doubt. And when you're really anchored in your love, that stuff is, you're in such peace within yourself that violence, that sharp separation cannot shake you from your center. And when you can't be shaken, those violent things easily are shaken. They're easily transformed. Because if you don't move, if you're in your immovable presence and you're sitting on your silent throne of your infinite self, and you don't leave that space when great separation and violence and anxiety and fear and frustration and this desperation and depression and sadness are within your experience, or people are experiencing that right in front of your eyes, if you don't move from that in infinite unmovable space, and you can move that mountain, you can create peace there. You can, it's like I saw this video of a man, he was standing in a jungle and an elephant was charging at him. He was in his hood, and he was like, "What you doing, homie?" And he was like a safari guide though, so he was sort of like confident in his peace. And he stood there in complete calm and peace, staring that elephant in its eyes as it was charging at him at full speed. A man is much smaller than an elephant, especially alpha male elephant. And that elephant halted at the edge of his auric field, because the peace, is sort of, we have a bubble around us, electromagnetic field, and when we're holding a space of peace, anything that comes and touches that edge of that auric field feels it. And it can't pass through it unless we put our attention on the outer reflection and embody the outer thing rather than hold the inner thing. So if we can hold the inner thing of peace when the outer thing of non-peace is coming at us, and we don't give way to the illusion and hold our attention in the reality, the illusion will change. And the elephant literally stopped right at the edge there, and he was calmly staring at it. And then he was like sizing him up to see if he'd continue holding the peace. And then the elephant sort of backed up a little bit and charged a little bit more, and he kept holding the peace and then stopped again just to test him one more time. And then he just kept holding the peace, just like complete love and peace. And the elephant just ended up looking at him again and walked away peacefully. And he smiled back at the camera. And that's what the Buddha did when there's a story of the Buddha who, is a great ascended master. teacher of the world or whatever, like a Jesus or the Krishna, those figures, he had a similar analogy where he had was walking calmly on a road in India or something, and there was a man that was a notorious murderer killer. Like he was like a very violent man that would just kill anybody he saw. He was just brute force, like, I'm gonna take whatever is yours, I don't care who you are, I'm gonna kill you and take your things, right? And this man would carry around, like, I think, like, the fingers of the people he killed around his neck, like a necklace. He was like a feared man, notorious in the area. The Buddha was walking on the path in complete peace and love because he's so connected to that inner presence. And like this man was to this elephant. And the man, this killer, was charging at him, saw him, and he knew it was the Buddha. He was charging at him with full might, with a sword, to kill him and slash him down. And the Buddha was calmly walking. And the man was charging, and he was running so fast, but he could never catch up to the Buddha, who was walking very, very slow, but very, very peacefully and lovingly. And this man was just like, and then the Buddha puts up his hand and looks at him, like he puts up his hand like in a hello, like right, full frontal hand up, palm facing him, and he says, "When will you stop?" And the man basically, like, was just stopped and was converted right there.
Wow.
Right in that moment of, like, the realization that the path he's taking, he cannot go high in that path of separation and violence. There's only destruction and death in that direction. And that's the power of love. That's the power of the presence, is when we truly are able to alchemize that within ourselves by first doing it and overcoming all the enemies within ourselves, all those 7 deadly sins of lust and greed and anger and sloth and gluttony and envy and all that, right? When we can overcome all the inner enemies, then we can truly overcome any outer enemy, because that energy of peace and love, it's a pacifying energy, because violence and anxiety and frustration and stress and stuff, it's an energy that's very erratic. It has no foundation, it has no stability to it. It's like unconscious. It's very, like, uncontrolled even. The person is not doing it consciously. It's just like an erratic thing. It's like a desire that's controlling the person and acting out of pattern and habit, destructive habits, like a possession, So the love and peace energy is complete control. It's complete self-power. It's completely being the king or queen within yourself. Complete command over your attention and your presence and your energy. And that's why that love and energy is, once we can overcome all the enemies within us, that pacifying energy then literally, those spikes, they get evened out. Because once it's like in physics, they have a really great example of like energy. If you have a really opposite energy coming at another opposite energy, you have really negative low frequency energy, and you have a really positive high frequency energy. When those two meet, because they're not compatible, right? When you have a high positive frequency energy, it's up here, it's really high. When you have a low frequency energy, like violence, anger, frustration, doubt, despair, fear, low frequency, right? When they meet, one of two things happens. The high frequency energy, if it can be held, it either brings up the low frequency energy to match it, so that they can be at the same frequency now, or the low frequency energy will not do it, and it will run away, it'll leave. It won't be able to be in the same presence of it. So that low frequency energy will either match it, or it will leave. Or that high frequency energy will fall and match the low frequency energy. So there's 3 options. That's the thing, is once we can truly create that stability within ourselves, then we won't need to fall into the reflection, because the reflection is so seductive. It's what we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation of giving our attention into the horizontal projection versus keeping it in ourselves, keeping our point of power within ourselves, and holding it no matter what is being seen.
I was talking to my father about this because he was like, or do you want to?
No, you can share this story, and I think we should probably wrap up this convo because we could talk forever.
True. But it reminded me of a conversation I had with my father, because I had a chance to visit him too, and he was saying, he was talking about some previous relationship, and he said, well, I really just want peace now. I feel like I don't want anybody to interrupt my peace. And because, like he said, he had a bad experience with an ex-girlfriend, and he's now dating somebody new. But when he said that, I was like, well, that doesn't sound right. I was like, do you really think that something from the outer world can affect your peace? And he kind of spoke of it as like this thing that he needs to protect.
Yeah.
That he needs to guard, that he feels is threatened if the wrong person comes into his life. And I was trying to express to him, like, well, I think that's really on you. If something disturbs or disrupts your peace, that's not really coming from the outer source. That's really your doing,
You're falling out of your own peace.
Yeah, you're falling out of your own peace.
Unconsciously or consciously.
And I think it's kind of interesting because, physically, in the material world, I'm the son, he's the father. So there are these egos that exist. You know? And I think the ego is such a limiting force that it's the thing that really holds us back from growing at all. And I think that I'm kind of at a point now where I can see the limitations my father puts onto himself. Because now the way he speaks, he talks about this thing where he doesn't want to be bothered anymore. He doesn't want to be disturbed anymore. He wants to keep the peace, and he feels that he's at a certain age where he shouldn't have to deal with certain things, And just all of those things that he says to me, I just feel like, it's choosing death rather than life, And it's just very clear to me that that's what he's choosing.
He's basically saying that he doesn't want to be disturbed, but what he's really saying is, I don't want to disturb myself out of my own peace.
Right. He's saying, I don't want to be disturbed from this outer space, but what he was really saying, I don't want to go any higher. I don't want to break out of my thing. I've created this structure. I've created these habits. I've created this life. I don't want that I don't want anything to disrupt that.
Well, it's a misunderstanding of seeing that your peace is coming from it's thinking that your peace is from what other people.
Yeah.
Your peace is just from you. So it's like if other people are there and they're disturbing you, they're just showing you how you're disturbing yourself.
Yeah.
Because nothing really can disturb.
I want to say something too, because I think it's interesting now. He was saying this, and like I said, whether people are choosing death or life, it's always going to be an educational experience for the observer.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking to this guy who invited me to this open mic thing.
Yeah.
And they're around the same age, this guy and my father. And this guy he said something that really caught my attention, that made me think of my father. He said, you know what, man? I'm just at a point now where I feel like I'm just getting too comfortable. And he was like, I just feel like I see my wife, she has all this energy, but I just feel like I'm losing energy. Like, I feel like I need to have a breakthrough, And he said that. And as soon as he said that, I just thought about my father. I was like, wow, this guy is choosing life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was such a profound moment because I could clearly see beyond the words, beyond everything that he was choosing to grow. He wants to grow.
Yeah.
And I can see that desire in him, like he really wants to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people, they have this thing about their age, like, oh, well, I'm at a certain age, so that means I can't grow anymore, or I can't do these new things. And that's one of the many illusions, I think, that exists within the world. And
the soul doesn't have any relation to age.
It doesn't have any relation to the physical, the body. This is all just,
And I wish people, I think as we grow collectively, we'll see more that you don't judge a person by these concepts of like mother, father. You judge a person by their soul development.
Mm-hmm.
By the soul, really, is the wisdom the soul has garnered over lifetimes. And by judge, I don't mean like judge. I mean just observe, like,
right. You're
where
looking,
are they at,
right,
as a soul level.
Right. And I think, like we were talking about, once you begin to do it for yourself, you could see it crystal clear in other people you interact with. You can see the moments where they're very high. You can see the moments where they're very limited. And
it's all self done by them.
And they're creating it themselves.
Yeah.
So
these types of conversations help for anyone listening of how clear it is that we are in charge.
Yeah, you could see a lot. You could see very clearly, I think. And like we were saying, we were talking about the senses in the beginning. And I think as a child, I used to hear stories about Jesus making blind people see. And I used to think of that like literally. Like I used to think that, person couldn't physically see, and then he would do something and they would see.
Yeah. And
I'm pretty, and that definitely could have existed, but I think of it now on a deeper level. I think the blindness, I think the blindness could be like a metaphor for the illusions that we speak of, the limitations we speak of, and to kind of show a person another way that allows them to see more. Because as we're both talking, I think we both have the ability to see more. Like as I met Vic, I saw that he wasn't at his he wasn't working at like a high state. You know, he was working in this like limited place.
Yeah.
And that concerned me because I'm like, you're Vic Bensley. You're like, you're like, you have the platform to really like do some amazing things. And I think that when you begin to understand, I think there's a kind of an urgency to really just let people know that there's another option. Like you can also, you're choosing this. You may not know, but you're actually choosing these things, and there's this other thing you can choose.
Yeah.
That could actually.
And that's what Jesus said too. Is come with me, and I'll show you how to be a fisherman of men, rather than the fish in the sea. You fish men out of the illusion and into the light of clarity of who they are. And I think, we all have that responsibility as we raise ourselves up to do that, because those people are us. That's the thing, is love your enemy because they are you. Yeah. They're in your experience. They're within your awareness. So they're a part of your identity, of the reality, of the now. And, that's why not only do we need to clear ourselves, but we need to start to think about ways that we can share this information. And like I say, I like to talk about it in a more scientific way, and a way that really logically satisfies the ego and at a deeper level satisfies the soul, that speaks to that deeper energetic level, because you're speaking from a deeper energetic place when you say these things, but then you're also speaking from a very rational place of like, this is how it's being created. This is, look at the things you've done in your life with other things, and see how your state of being generated that, look how your state of being is generating this challenge, and create clarity there so you're not creating a life of struggle and strife in one part of your life. Make your entire life easy. Make your entire life blissful. Make your entire life heaven, because you're the one that's in charge. You're the one that's the creator of everything, and it's all about you. And we do have that responsibility, and I think it has to do with the love. And I think the more we can dive deeper into that feeling of love and seeing beyond the egos and seeing really into the energy, like when we're speaking to people, we don't speak to where they're coming from, what they're projecting. We're speaking to the soul. I've had some profound experiences when talking to people's limitations, and instead of I'll consciously say, sometimes privately within myself, to myself, but sometimes when they're really being extremely separate, and like you could really see the blocks, I'll say it out loud, and I'll say, look, I'm not talking to your projection right now. I'm talking to your soul, and I'll look in deep through their eyes, and I'll straight pull the soul out of them, and I'll say, I'm talking to your soul. You don't want to do this. You want to make a decision that's going to create life for you. You don't want to make a decision that's destroying you, and you know that, and you know you want to make a decision that's going to create abundance and health for you. And that's why I'm saying this to you, because you want to hear it, because your soul wants that for you. So I don't even speak to the level of the projection at times, and that's a powerful way. If we can become aware of that, that's a really good way to bypass the projection, because sometimes the projection is like a wall between the soul. It's like this cocoon hardened shell, but as the presence, like I found that you can, if you look at a person's eyes, and through the eye you see the energy and the soul there, and sometimes the ego doesn't let the soul take command because it's so programmed, it's so in charge, that you as that presence can just be like, nah, like you're just a servant. Like I'm straight. Where's the soul? Bring the soul out. That's the only person I'm talking to. It's like, bring me to your I want to talk to the one that's really in charge. I want to talk to the real true you. And I think we have the ability, based on what we choose to focus on with any moment. Like there's the soul of the moment, there's the soul of the person, and if we're aware enough, we can decide to talk to the highest part of a person or the highest part of a situation. If we are aware that we can, that's another level to this, is like you see how quickly a person changes when you look at their soul, because they know you're looking at their soul and they can't hide. They're like, oh shit, you're looking at my like soft spot, and it's like, damn, like none of my weapons to block you from looking at that. They're like, I'm disarmed. You've disarmed me. Like you found my soul. Like now I have to listen. Now I hear you, But we have to be able to do that consciously, to access that. But like, it's like you as the master decide to talk to the person's soul rather than the ego and projections. And you don't even have to go through their blocks. You just go straight to their soul. You just say, I'm speaking to your highest aspect, the highest aspect of you. And you can do that privately, or if it's really a lot of energy of like the projections, if it's really like hard to reach the soul, then you could say it verbally, but you have to say it from that presence of an unshakable peace in that immovable space, and you have to really be bossed the fuck up to do that, and we can do that when we know ourselves at a deeper level. And that's what this all is all about, and that's what this whole conversation is about, is how do we know ourselves at a deeper level, how do we discover the depths of our love, and how do we connect to the God self that's giving us that love right now, and how do we develop that relationship and speak from that place and be one with that place, and use it to help our brothers and sisters who are reflections of us, and raise ourselves up as a collective world, which we are. And that's a note that I feel like would be a good place to end on for this beautiful conversation.
Beautiful note. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for this opportunity and the sharing of jewels.
I'm all about this. This is good. This is really good.
This is life. Choosing life.
Choosing life. That should be the name of this podcast.
Choosing Life with Kenrick McFarlane,
Yeah.
a.k.a. Saint Germain.
Saint Germain.
Hey.
Shout outs to all my brothers and sisters. Hope you choose wisely.
Exactly. And with that, may peace be with you.
Cool, man. Greatest podcast of all time.
Hey.
This one will definitely change lives.
Thanks for listening to the Indigo Minute podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and check out indigominute.com for much more content on ascension, identity, and the alchemy of self-transformation. So thanks again for listening. May you be blessed.